Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I am a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. Welcome. Today, I spent some time working on my upcycle table for my daughter, and I used a hot knife for the first time, and everything was going perfectly. I was cutting records, like music records, with a hot knife, and it was fine. Like, it worked really well. I just got the hot knife in the mail today. And then for some reason, I decided that it was fine to clean off the hot knife with a rag after I was done cutting while it was still hot. So I melted the rag, and it was stinky. But other than that, I recommend the hot knife. It was pretty easy to use and fun, and it cut the records perfectly. Did I measure the records to be the correct size? No, that's beside the fact. So I cut the wrong measurements and I melted a rag, but the hot knife works very well. So we'll come up with a different idea. Maybe records actually are not long enough to fit inside this table that I want to put them in. Anyway, today I want to talk about cracking the door open, and the different perspectives on this. So cracking the door open, say you want to start exercising. It's so much harder to get to the gym the very first time than it is to go back the second, third, fourth time. So that concept, and then on the flip side of the coin, that it's so much easier to not drink if we stay away from it, if we don't crack the door open. Same thing, just the good and the bad in comparison. So it can work for us and it can work against us, depending on what we're trying to achieve or avoid. So I just wanted to explore it, talk about daily habits and the choices that we make. So when we talk about positive habits like exercise and eating healthy or even prayer, starting can often be the hardest part. But once you crack the door open, it becomes easier to go back. I remember the first time, I've talked about it here, I decided I was going to get on my knees and start doing a prayer before bed every night. And I was embarrassed. I was afraid somebody was going to walk in on me. I didn't even know like what I was doing, I just did it though. It was making the decision that I was going to start doing it. That was the hardest part. This whole yoga thing that I've been talking to you guys about for the past year, like I used to do yoga every day. I want to start doing it again. And I just couldn't seem to get myself to be doing it again. Well, I have been doing yoga every other day consistently this month since, I guess for a week, maybe a little over a week now. And I was thinking, like, what is the difference between why I could not get myself to do it before? What am I doing differently now that is helping me want to come back and do it again? And I realized that the thing that was keeping me from doing it was that I wanted to do yoga the way I used to do yoga before my stroke. I could do the back bends. I mean, I wasn't like a 20-year-old, but I could do things like the back bend and the headstand and stuff like that. And like balancing on your arms with your knees on your elbows. I can't remember what it's called, but I could do all of those things, and the push-ups and all of that stuff. I can do a regular push-up, but a yoga push-up with your arms in. I'm challenged to do that. Anyway, I was thinking that might have been the block for why I wasn't doing it. So I cracked the door open. I went ahead and did the yoga, but did it the way that was enjoyable, the way that it wasn't terrible. Didn't feel like I was suffering. It felt good. And I stopped trying to do it the way that I was doing it before I had my stroke. And I told myself that it was okay. It was okay to do it the way that I needed to do it now. And that's part of acceptance, that my stroke has really, I think I feel a bit weaker. I think it's because I just haven't been doing it, but because I have such difficulty with balance and vision and everything now, I think that is coming to play, because yoga is very much about your drishti and breathing and balance and everything. And I think I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to be reminded that I'm not the same person. You know, my body's not the same. But the same goes for eating, excuse me, healthy eating, studying. I remember in school how difficult it was to get started. You know, I could even walk to the library and then not even start studying. Like, I'll get my environment all ready, get my snacks and all that stuff, but I just didn't want to start studying. Same for work projects. If I had a big thing I needed to write, a big research paper maybe to write, it was harder to get the first sentence written down than it was to keep going. And I think the key that I had forgotten with the yoga, and I often forget with a lot of things that I do, is to start slow and gentle and just crack the door open, and let the light in a little bit. So I adjusted my yoga practice, since I can't do it the way that I used to before the stroke. I think it was that idea was making me avoid it altogether. But once I cracked the door open and accepted that it's okay to do yoga differently now, I find myself not of feeling the desire to avoid it at all. After my morning meetings, I feel like getting myself dressed and put my mat down, and I just start doing some yoga. So this small step, this little decision that really has been an inward practice of acceptance, has made a huge difference in my mental and physical well-being. Like, it seems like I'm stretching a little bit further now. And all that changed was something inside between my two ears. But this idea of cracking the door open takes a darker turn when it comes to negative habits like drinking. So, the opposite really is true. Is it the opposite or is it the same? You know, it's just, once we crack the door open to one of our negative behaviors, it's easy to keep doing it, you know? So it's easy to stay sober, not easy, but simple. It's easier to stay sober when we don't crack that door open. But once you do, if you take that first drink, you're on that slippery slope that leads to, it's a fatal progression. And I was reminded of that this morning in my morning meeting. And old habits and behaviors that we want to stop, again, are best left untouched. Once we revisit those bad habits, it's easier to pick them back up again. It can be incredibly hard to stop. It's like trying to stop a moving train, you know? So if we just don't touch it at all, it's a little easier to stay stopped. And that's why it's important to be mindful of what doors we are cracking open. We need to recognize the difference between the doors that lead to growth and healing and those that lead us back to places that we don't want to go. So how do we know which doors to crack open and which to keep firmly shut? It comes to self-awareness and honesty. And when I think about this yoga thing, it's not like I wasn't being honest with myself. I just didn't even know that that was an obstacle. I didn't know why I kept avoiding it. I kept avoiding it because I kept thinking about how difficult it is to do the things that I did before. I was thinking how painful it would be for my thighs to hold me up the way that I used to hold them. You know, when we do certain poses with our knees bent and you're just standing in that pose and holding it, and you know, you start the beloved shaking, muscles are shaking. I kept thinking of how hard it was going to be, and I didn't want to deal with that. But I didn't realize it, that that's what I was doing until I spread out my mat. And as I was going through the motions, I thought, well, I don't have to do it this way. You know, my mom wouldn't do it that way. And so I almost had to take myself out of my own body and think of somebody else who had a stroke. How would I suggest that they do this pose? Why am I not gentle with myself the way that I would help others? You know, what I actually was doing was I was thinking about how how much fun it would be to have some of my sobriety sisters come over and do yoga with me. And I was thinking, well, I wouldn't mind, you know, playing the recording, and then I could just show them, if they're beginners, I could show them how to do the beginner's pose. That's what I started thinking. How would I show a newcomer how to do yoga? And then as I was doing it, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a newcomer. I mean, I really am. It doesn't matter that I did it for several years. I haven't done it for several years now. So I'm really starting over. And that is that was what my brain had to process in order for me to get to the point where I was like, okay, I can do this. I don't have to do this like I'm some sort of intermediate or advanced, definitely not advanced, but even intermediate yoga practitioner. I can do this like a beginner. And that's what has gotten me to keep coming back. And I think that is how many of us need to tackle lots of things that we do. It feels like so much pressure to, like, I have to solve all of my problems the very first time I do it, you know? And I don't have to. I heard somebody else say that today. You start doing work in the steps, and it's like, you're practicing step one and you're like, oh, I want to make all of my amends. I need to correct all of my wrongdoings over all of these years. I need to do it right away. And it just doesn't work that way. We need to allow ourselves to be beginners in all of our activities. We don't have to be intermediate as soon as we step towards whatever it is we want to, whatever our goal is. So that's what's been working for me right now. What's funny is this morning I was brushing my teeth and I have this electric toothbrush, and I had been using it on the slow vibrate because I just don't like how it shakes my head. And I thought, I don't know, I guess I had gone to the dentist and she was picking at my teeth, and I felt like maybe it wouldn't be so uncomfortable at the dentist if I used my toothbrush on high speed. So I started using high speed, hating every time I brush my teeth. And then I found myself not using it at all. I went from high speed to not using it at all. Um, and then I recognized that even like a couple days ago, and realized that why don't I just go back to low speed? Low speed is better than not using it at all. So I started using it on low speed again. Like, why do I put so much pressure on myself? It's a toothbrush, but that's the reality. That's real life. That's how insane I am. Um, and then so same thing, like I needed to crack the door back open to use my toothbrush. And the way that I did that was to use it at a lower speed. So now I use it every day again. And it applies to really many of our habits to build habits, start slow and gentle, and respect your current limitations while you start making progress. My back has been hurting, gosh, I don't know, forever. It's been hurting forever. And I keep trying to do different activity, like different exercises that are going to help my back. And like I was doing a plank every night for a while, and that ended up, I noticed it was actually weakening my back. My back was starting to hurt more. And I've noticed since I started doing yoga that my back is hurting again in this one tiny spot. So I'm trying to work my yoga around that part of my back. And so that is respecting my current limitations while still making progress. And I have already been making some progress in yoga. So that's exciting to be doing that again. It feels really uplifting for me. So another important aspect of this concept is understanding that it's not about jumping from, like for yoga, it's not about me jumping from beginners yoga back to intermediate right away. Because like I just said, I'm making progress. That doesn't mean that the 3 years that I haven't been doing yoga I'm going to catch back up really quick. That same thing about correcting all of my bad habits overnight. It's just not realistic. So, again, doing small, manageable steps, and that applies to our recovery as well. It applies to our sobriety. It applies to vestibular therapy. It applies to, gosh, like everything. I am always the kind of person that wants to go from zero to hero, and I have to be reminded of the power of taking small steps, and the power of taking the first step. And really the meeting this morning was about staying away from the first drink, but what I was thinking of was how was on the flip side of the coin that I was thinking about how so many things are more difficult to do when we don't do it, so I hope that makes sense. It was like the same concept, but I was flipping it from bad to good. And so just being really vigilant and aware of the doors that we crack open, the ones that need to stay closed, the ones that lead us back to old destructive behaviors, practicing mindfulness, awareness. And I think most importantly of all, what really resonates with me today is being gentle with ourselves. That's what I'm trying to focus on, especially this week as I continue to start feeling better and better. I've been staying away from digital devices for the most part. I, of course, allow myself to do my podcast, and I listen to my AA meetings in the morning just by audio. But other than that, I'm focusing on doing my crafts and things like that. And I feel like I'm getting better and better every day. So August, you never know if I'm going to have a good month or a bad month. And August started out pretty rough, but it seems like it's getting better. So that's all I got for you today. Thank you for listening to the Recovery Daily podcast, and I will talk to you tomorrow.